Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. David Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new teen therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. David is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda.
I don't know why. I start every time you say it, it's so funny. Welcome. Hi, David, and welcome listeners to episode 208. We have a really exciting special guest, and I'll let David introduce him.
Well, I'm thrilled that Neil Sattin is joining us. He's a dear colleague and a tremendous individual. I first met Neil when he invited me to be on his own fabulous podcast, and that led to a couple more interviews on his podcast, which deals with relationship issues, and I'm sure would be of great interest to many of you. We'll give you the name of his podcast, and I'll put a link in the show notes as well. And Neil was also helpful to me, not only in giving me the chance to appear on his podcast, but giving some tips on how to grow my audience through syndicating of the podcast and things that have had a huge and greatly much appreciated impact. I wanted to mention too, before we dive in to Neil, well, and then I had the great opportunity to do some personal work with Neil a number of months ago, which was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And we're going to play part one of that personal work today, and part two of that personal work next week. But before we dive in, we'd like to read a little endorsement of that personal work, which appeared on your podcast, Neil. And Rhonda is going to read a fabulous note from one of your fans.
Right.
After he listened to, or she, to the personal work we did.
Yeah, but I know we're just not so organized in our delivery of this podcast. I also want to say that today this podcast is being sent out on September 14th, and there's a very exciting thing happening tomorrow. What is that, David?
Well, so tomorrow, the release of my new book, Feeling Great.
Yeah.
It's been on pre-sale on Amazon for a month or two, but you can actually buy it and have it delivered tomorrow. And if you are so inclined and order it, this will certainly help it with the rankings, which are important when the book is first released. And I won't talk too much about it, except it's a little bit like my first book, Feeling Great. It has all of the wonderful cognitive therapy techniques that were in that book, but they've been updated over the last 40 years since that book came out. And then we've got all these tremendous new techniques having to do with therapeutic resistance and motivation that have made ultra rapid recovery possible for the first time. So if you're a therapist wanting to learn about the new techniques, the new book Feeling Great might be up your alley. Or if you're just a citizen wanting to tune up your emotional life and experience greater joy, it could be a good thing. Or if you're a patient in therapy, it will hopefully accelerate your recovery.
Nice. Yay, I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
Yeah, I ordered it, so I'm excited to get it. Okay, so this is an endorsement that someone sent you, right, Neil? It was from Luna. I edited it just a little, so if she's listening to this podcast, she won't hear it exactly like what she wrote it. But she has listened to your personal work with David, and this is what she wrote. The day went by, and I thought nothing more of it until I tuned into the episode tonight and heard Neil with David talking about needing to become more organized. It was like the universe had spoken to me. I started my morning with the thoughts of I'm just longing for a partner who needs someone to organize them because although I'm an okay partner, I'm a brilliant organizer. If only there was someone out there who would value my amazing organization skills, but accept my mediocre emotional regulation skills to be in a relationship with me, then I'd be in luck. That was it. After I listened to Neil's podcast, I thought, Neil's my man. It's a shame he's halfway across the world. Listening with intrigue, my mind was blown by the learnings, both in Neil's vulnerability and in David's valuable techniques. Listening to Neil explain his negative beliefs and the journey he takes regularly made me feel closer to him and to everyone in general, really. It lifted the dark cloak of loneliness I'd had weighing me down recently. Thank you, Neil and David. Not only was I again reminded that there is hope in finding a partner with similar values, but for the connection you offered me and the rest of your audience through your being so vulnerable. Thanks, Luna.
What a beautiful note. Well, let's get to know a little bit about Neil, and then we'll dive right into the work that we did. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the podcast business, what you do, in addition to your podcasting, and come to life for
Great.
us.
Yeah. The podcast was in many respects born in two places. It was born out of work that at the time I was doing with people and their dogs. Actually, I was a dog trainer, and I often found that the problems that people were having with their dogs were only addressable if I helped the people deal with the stress that was happening in their personal lives, in their emotional lives. And so frequently, someone's relationship is a huge source of stress, or stress in their household. So that drew me to explore more what was required to have better relationships and solve relationship problems. And then I've always been someone that people have turned to talk about relationships for whatever reason. I mean, that's a thread that's existed through my whole life. And I also have seen a lot of struggle in my parents' relationship and other people's parents' relationships, and then ultimately in my own relationships, and really wondering, what does it take to get past the struggle, or when you get to those moments of struggle, how do you get past it in a way that actually makes your relationship stronger? And prior to starting the podcast, I really had not figured that out. I'm not even sure now that I've figured it out, honestly, but I have had a lot of great conversations with amazing people like yourself, David. Also other, luminaries in the field. The Gottmans, John and Julie, have been on my show a number of times. Peter Levine has been on talking about healing trauma. Sue Johnson talking about emotionally focused couples therapy and attachment. So it's been important to me to look at the question of how to do relationship well and how to thrive and how to get past challenging moments from as many angles as possible, both in terms of inner work that we can do to show up with more health and availability and vulnerability, and then also the relational work, the ways that we learn to either do or not do things that get in the way of healthy relating. So those are the things that motivate me and what brought me into the podcast. I do coaching work with people. So I work with couples and individuals as a coach. And then I have an online course that's all focused on relationship communication and improving relationship communication. Those are my big things right now, along with the podcast. Yeah. And I'm always learning, growing, and trying to find new ways to tackle the same subject.
Well, I have two questions, and Rhonda may have a couple too before we dive in here. But first, it sounds like you haven't had formal training as a clinical psychologist or something. It might have been self-taught to a certain degree. And the reason I raised that, there's no doubt that you're tremendously knowledgeable and effective at what you do. in my training group at Stanford, we bring in community therapists and give them free training every week. And the training I've done in general, the people who, many of the ones who become the most amazing therapists are the ones who had no background. So they were just open to learning the things that we were teaching. And sometimes the ones who have had extensive, training in psychodynamic therapy or this or that or the other, it's very more difficult to teach them because they think they know something.
I'm feeling
But I don't know,
encouraged by hearing that, and I've definitely been open to not knowing, and at the same time looking for kind of the best, like what really works in this moment, what would really serve the person before me. But you're right, I haven't. I also have not had formal training. I don't have my doctorate. I have had a number of coach training programs that I've gone through that have been really helpful in learning that modality of working with people. And when I was an undergrad, actually, I had a mentor who was a Gestalt psychologist, and I learned how to facilitate encounter groups. So I was doing encounter group facilitation, in my early 20s with this mentor, and a lot of what I do and have done since is born out of those moments.
Oh yeah, I did quite a bit of that when I was a medical student. I was cutting medical school classes because I just wasn't fit for medical school. But I went to a lot of psychodrama marathons and encounter groups, and it was very, very amazing and exciting. I learned a lot from that as well, much more than what I would have learned in medical school had I attended classes more regularly, because it was real people changing, often dramatically before your eyes, and it was scary though, at times.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
What questions you?
I was just going to say, there's a lot of power in learning just how to really show up in the moment, and that's what I think was so powerful about the work that we did together in the session that everyone will be hearing, is how you show up in the moment without hesitation, and there's such a gift, I think, in accepting what is happening right then and there and working with it.
Right. Yeah, right.
I just wanted to know, Neil, did you have any experience with team therapy before you started working with David?
No.
Before?
No, none at all, other than reading David's work and the conversations that he and I have had where we've talked about it some. But no, I've never worked with a team therapist or anything like that.
I think we'll probably feel your answer to this question, and as we're listening to the podcast. But what was your overall impression when you were finished working with, like, while you were working with David and when you were finished?
Well, overall, I've found the work to be super powerful for me, and I have had experience in the past working with a therapist who used CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and I didn't really find that to be terribly effective, the way that person was, showed up with that model. And so in some respects, I've actually been, David, you might be kind of shocked to hear this, but I've been kind of anti-CBT in a lot of ways.
I am too.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And so there's something about kind of the formulaic nature that I think is really, it challenges me in that, like, desire to be real in the moment, and like to be forced into a structure is challenging.
Yeah.
So what I loved about the teamwork was, that I didn't really intend to say it that way, but what I loved about it was that despite knowing that there was a formula there, an order of operations, so to speak, in what we were doing, it didn't ever feel formulaic to me. And it did feel like it, so much was just about David and I getting real with each other right there. And, using the methodology, but letting the methodology be something that that guided us versus something that we had to conform to. That's what it felt like to me anyway.
Nice.
And we were dealing with some pretty strong feelings of overwhelm that were plaguing me. We did this session right after all the lockdowns for the COVID-19 pandemic started. So I think it was around March 23rd that we had our session. And I was super overwhelmed just with everything going on. And despite not having really any reduction in the number of things going on in my life since then, I would say that feeling of overwhelm and being paralyzed like that hasn't really returned. In the moments that it has, I've been able to pretty quickly call upon the conversation that David and I had as a way of helping kind of snap me out of it.
So that was my second question. Since the end of the work that you guys did together, have you had long-lasting results of that? And you just answered that yes, you have.
Yeah,
Really.
Absolutely. I'm not sure I can say the same is true for the procrastination session that we did. Sorry, David, but that actually has been a lot better impacted. It was impacted by the overwhelm session because, and I can't remember if I think we did talk about this, the way that shame kind of factors in to the equation.
Yeah.
And I think for me around procrastination, like shame can be one of the worst parts, right? Is like that, the feeling of not doing what I know I ought to be doing. And that being said, I've been able to procrastinate with much less. I think there hasn't really been any shame at all about it. So in many respects, I wouldn't even frame the problem of procrastination the same way that I was feeling it back when we did that session.
Without the shame, procrastination can be a joyous thing. I try to spend at least 3 to 5 hours every day procrastinating.
Well, I'm right there with you.
I think it's
too bad we're in
healthy.
different time zones. We could procrastinate together.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Well, I think one quick question before we dive in here. Again, repeat the name of your podcast. We'll put the link in the show notes, but because I think a lot of people may want to listen in because you're doing, fantastic stuff. And if people are struggling with relationship problems, this might be right up your alley.
Sure. My podcast is called Relationship Alive, and we've had also 200 something episodes. I don't remember exactly which one we're on now. And over 5 million downloads, and it's been a labor of love about love for quite some time now.
That's fantastic.
So Relationship Alive.
Okay, so relationship or ships alive? Ship, Relationship Alive. Okay, great. Well, we're going to dive in now and hope you enjoy it. We'll play the first half of the session, and then next week we'll play the exciting conclusion. So thanks again for joining us, Neil.
Sure, and I'm really excited everyone's going to be getting to hear the work that we did together.
Okay, tell me how you've been feeling.
So I've been noticing that I've been feeling, I would characterize it as feeling overwhelmed, that there are too many things to organize, and there's even a little bit more chaos in my life now with being confined more or less to my home and having responsibility to homeschool my children, and on top of that, there are a lot of projects that I'm trying to manage, and those could be, in my business and, the podcast and all of that, or they could be like personal projects, like organizing my home or making sure I stay well nourished and get enough exercise. And so lately I've been noticing that it just feels like the volume has become really loud. And I would say that I've never been necessarily the most organized person, from like, if you had the perspective of organization, meaning like everything is neat and tidy and you have your days planned out exactly how they're going to go. Like, that's not me, or my approach to organization. It's been generally a little bit more organic in how it unfolds. And that can work up to a certain level of complexity. But once things start to get more complex, I've been, especially with, the state of the world over the past few weeks, I've been just noticing that I want to shut down instead of feeling like I'm really rising to that complexity with more resourcefulness. Yeah.
Before we go on, let me see if I got it right, because it sounds like what I was telling you I've been confronting
Oh, yeah.
recently.
Yeah.
That you've been feeling overwhelmed
Mm-hmm.
because you're just getting too many things that have to be organized, and and now that you're confined to home, you've got homeschooling, which takes a lot of energy and effort, and personal projects and business projects, many of which are probably fun and exciting, uh, but it just feels like the volume has become loud. There's too much stuff happening, and then on top of that, you're feeling like you're not organized, that you don't work in that kind of obsessive manner, but in an intuitive, organic manner. Just like today, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I do the same thing. Like I'm supposed to work on my app with some colleagues. I told them I've got something really great going on here with Neil, and but I'll pick up with you later in the day. But that and so I don't like to have a schedule. I like to work intuitively. In my office, I have things piled up all over in here.
Out
Uh,
of
you
view
know,
of the camera right now. Just
yeah, I could show you, stacks this high on my desk of stuff. But it's quasi organized, but I let it get disorganized, and then once a week I try to force myself to file things, and then I feel much better. But I like to make things happen and just set things down, when I'm done with them. And it sounds like a little of that is happening to you. You like things to unfold organically, and then when there's too much and everything gets complex, and it's too demanding to keep up on top of all of these multiple things happening at the same time, you feel like you want to, you just want to maybe shut down and escape. And maybe a little like myself, sometimes I think, gee, I mean, do I need an app? Do I need another fantastic podcast or good podcast or whatever? And the little Misty, our feral cat we adopted, she'll swing by and rub up against my legs and give me a meow, saying, time for some candy or some lovies. Do you have some time, Daddy? And I find myself feeling really torn and wanting to spend more time on some things of that level. Did I get it right so far?
yeah, definitely. And right down to the, like, it ends up feeling a little bit like procrastination, or
Yeah.
Here's an example, and this is just one of many things. I did 2 live events last year that I mentioned to you. One, Terry Real came here to Portland, Maine, and the other, John and Julie Gottman, came here. And both of them I filmed. And I've been wanting to get the videos edited and out the door so that people can see them. And honestly, that could be a source of revenue for me to make up for the cost of filming both of those things.
Yeah.
And the Gottman event, I mean, that's 2.5 hours. So really, all I've needed to do is take 2.5 or 3 hours and sit down and watch it and come up with some notes and send them to my video guy. And I've had that sitting on my desk, so to speak, my virtual desk, since October when the event happened. And obviously I've had 3 hours, but I can think of a million other things I've done with my 3 hours. And I think when the volume increases, like I was talking about, then so does the visibility of all the things that aren't getting done. Like and then it becomes really hard to prioritize because each thing calls loudly to me. Oh, there's this thing you haven't done that you could have done 3 months ago. And then there's this other thing. And for me, I end up just doing, what I need to do. So every week I need to create a podcast that's important to me. And I've managed to do that more or less, except for, in the depths of when my marriage was ending, I had to stop for a minute or two there. But for the most part, like, I'm getting that done. But all the ways that I want to grow my practice and my work and just myself as a human, I end up feeling like I'm falling short.
Right. I'm sorry to hear about your marriage ending. Can imagine that was a source of angst and stress. But you're saying that in a way you feel like you're procrastinating, but what the issue is that you have all these creative things that you could do, like listen to the Gottman event up in Maine, so that you could think about how to edit it and maybe market it, get some extra revenue. Could be exciting, generate interest among your fans, generate more fans. But there's so many of these maybe cool, exciting things that you could be doing. You're noticing all these things that you could be doing there, that you say they shout out to you. They're all worthwhile and interesting. But you find that you have to take what energy you have, just to do the things you have to do, like doing the essentials, doing a podcast every week, and that you're not feeling the motivation to, or maybe even having the time and resources
Mm-hmm.
to do, probably a significant list of really cool things that you could be doing, probably most of which would be, reasonably successful, if not tremendously successful.
Yeah, I mean, that's the dream, is that each of those things, they come with the allure of the impact that it could make, or I think when I look at everything that I'm doing, I mean, I used the word organic earlier, and my life has kind of evolved organically, in a way that generally I look at and I think, wow, this is beautiful. And like, I look back at everything that's come together and woven its way together to create what happens now. I worked in technology for a long, long time, and so much of what I do now would have been a lot more challenging if I didn't have that background. And I can also look at each of these ideas and think like, wow, that could be amazing, or that could be a piece of this puzzle, and the puzzle starts to take shape in front of me, and that gets exciting. And
I have an idea.
Yeah.
Let's not work together on any project, because that's what's happening to me too. And these things expand exponentially. Like all of your skills start coming together, and then you start thinking, wow, I could do this, and I could do that, and I could do this, and I could do that. What you're saying is that there's an allure, a dream, and that your life has evolved organically and is kind of coming to fruition on many different levels, and the things that you worked hard to learn are now available to be, creating things that would just have a tremendous beneficial impact on others and benefits for yourself, but maybe you're saying, oh my gosh, when do I really want to have to do all of that right now?
Right. There's some, well, you know what, the voice that actually that I hear is something like, I've never been able to be that organized, and so it's like I'm not sure I can.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like there's that hesitation.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what the image is that's like coming to me, but it's like, there are any number of starting gates. Like there's the starting gate of finishing the projects, or there's the starting gate of like, let's just create a meal plan so that I feel a little bit more organized around my nutrition and nourishment. Any one of those starting gates, like I find myself caught a moment before that where I'm like, wow, I could go that way, I could go that way. And even when I step up to one, I'm often hearing the call of the others. You talked about the magic button earlier in our conversation, and for me, the magic button would be like the elf that somehow knows exactly where this is all going and just shows up every day with my daily agenda and says, you just do these things and trust me, and it's all going to work out just fine. And all I would have to do is those things, and everything that I wanted to get done would happen, and the structure to support my personal wellness as well as the wellness of my clients and listeners and the wellness of my business and my children, and like that would just ripple out just from taking those actions. And what's funny is that I know like that it all boils down to what you do in any given moment. Like that's what life is. Life is like what you do in this moment and then in the next moment. Sometimes that just feels like the biggest hurdle to me, and it matters more now than ever because of that additional chaos that's in the system.
Yeah. So in an ideal world, that you're having a little elf bring you a do list every day, and,
Mm-hmm.
and the elf has figured out what are the essentials and the order in which to do them in order to fit everything in, and then it's all going to kind of ripple out, and all these wonderful things are going to happen. But then you're saying life is a series of moments, and it's kind of hard for you to get on board and feel motivated to tackle all these things, because once you think of, well, let's work on the starting gate for, let's create an eating plan, and then once you think about stepping up and working on that, you start hearing the call of all these other things
Mm-hmm.
that you should be doing, and maybe end up feeling or getting a bit paralyzed. Can I suggest we switch just temporarily to the daily mood log?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have one there? And at the top it says upsetting event, and that could just be like, could be this morning or right now, or
Yeah, I mean, I would, for an upsetting event, let's just say an upsetting event would be a day that's gone by where I feel like I didn't get enough done.
Okay. So is that right now, feeling like yesterday you didn't get enough done?
Sure.
Okay. So put that on the upsetting event day when I didn't get enough done.
Yeah.
And just write that down.
Yeah, I'm actually.
You did already?
I didn't yet, but I'm opening this in a little PDF editor thing so that I'm editing right on the document. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then you see so that's the upsetting event. That now we want to see what your emotions are, and the first category is sad, blue, depressed, down, unhappy. Are you feeling some of those?
Definitely.
Tell me which ones, and I'll circle them, or maybe you can circle them or highlight them.
Yeah, I
And
would
you're,
say kind of down and
hmm
unhappy. Those.
and how strong are those between 0 and 100?
So yeah, at the end of a day, I'd say it's like an 85 or 90.
Okay, then put 85 to 90 in the percent now column.
Okay.
That's that, and see that's important because just a minor point. You're such a warm, upbeat person,
Yeah.
so people interacting with you wouldn't know that you're feeling that unhappy inside. That's why it's great to measure because that's almost the most intense unhappiness a human being can have.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you feel? Anxious, worried, panicky, nervous, or frightened?
Yes.
Okay, what, all of them?
um, yeah, I mean if I like touch into worried, maybe a little less worried, a little more on the panicky side, a little more on the
Yeah,
nervous side, a little
yeah,
less on the frightened side.
yeah.
But I mean, it's all
And
definitely
anxious?
there. Yeah, anxious for sure.
Yeah,
Like,
sure. Yeah,
yeah.
and how strong does that get between 0 and 100?
Um, I would say, wow, if I compare that to sadness, I would have actually said that that's a little bit more, but
Sure.
so maybe the sadness is more like 80 to 85 and then the anxious is more like 85 to 90. But at
Okay.
the end of a day when I'm feeling that feeling of like, oh, I didn't get enough done, then yeah, there's like the kind of the sadness that comes with that, and then yeah, there's the anxiety of like, I work for myself, and I'm also in charge of my own like showing up for my life. And yeah, there's that sense of like, oh, if I don't do this, like no one's gonna do this for me. So um it's all
Yeah.
dependent on me. Yeah. So all right, that was a long-winded way of saying 85 to 90 as well.
Great, great. Now, do you feel guilty, remorseful, bad, or ashamed?
Um yeah, I would say probably mostly. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a like you're a capable person. Like you should be able to do this and figure this out. Um,
By the way, I'm also writing down negative thoughts in the
uh-huh.
negative thought column, and I just wrote down I should be able to do this and figure this out. And when that thought goes through your mind, how strongly do you believe it between 0 and 100?
Um, that I believe I should be able to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
100?
100. Yeah, for
Okay.
sure.
So I'm going to put 100 in the percent now column, the belief
Okay.
column. And again, you were about to tell me how guilty, remorseful, bad, or ashamed. Do you have any of those feelings?
I'm starting to feel guilty that these are all so high, but yeah, I'd like I would just put that all at like an 85 to 90.
Okay,
I always feel
great.
like I've got, the glimmer of like there is always that piece of me that's like it's all going to be okay, you're fine. That still lives in those moments,
Sure,
but
sure. But
yeah.
that's really intense, the guilt and shame and
Mhm.
feeling bad. And then do you feel inferior, worthless, inadequate, defective, or incompetent?
Shit. Yeah, I do.
All
This
of them,
is
or some of them, or
no wonder this is so horrible.
yeah,
Um yeah, I wouldn't say worthless. I would say it probably is,
inadequate.
it's probably inadequate and defective, not incompetent. Yeah,
Okay.
so somewhere
And
in there.
how strong are those?
That's more in probably like the 65 to 70%
Oh,
range.
okay. And do you feel lonely, unloved, unwanted, rejected, alone, or abandoned?
That I do not
Okay, we'll
feel
put a
as
0 there.
much.
You feel embarrassed, foolish, humiliated, or self-conscious?
I would make that a 50.
And which feelings? Embarrassed, foolish, humiliated, self-conscious?
Well, it's only in my own eyes. Like, I don't think
Sure.
anyone else really, I mean, except
Sure.
now, of course, everyone who's listening knows this is what Neil goes through at the end of a day where he hasn't
Yeah.
gotten enough time.
This is very
the
courageous what
reality.
you're doing. It'll be interesting to see what kind of feedback you get. I predict you're going to get an overwhelming number of fan responses.
We'll see. Yeah, so I would say like embarrassed, not foolish, not so much self-conscious, but humiliated. Yeah, that's why it's sort of in that range. And yeah, 50. I'd say 50. Yeah.
50. You feel hopeless, discouraged, pessimistic, despairing?
Yeah, definitely not despairing, discouraged for sure. That's the one that jumps out at me most. And
how strong is that?
I would say that's an 85.
Great.
Sure. Yeah.
Great. And then do you feel oh, by the way, I could have recorded this at my end.
I'm recording.
Okay. But then I could have sent you my recording so you would have a local higher quality.
Oh, no, we're good. We're good, I think.
Okay, that's great. Good.
Yeah, you're coming through loud and clear.
Oh, good. You feel frustrated, stuck, thwarted, or defeated?
That's probably like a 95%.
And all of those? Or
all of them, yeah.
Yeah. And do you feel angry, mad, resentful, annoyed, irritated, upset, or furious?
I'm annoyed and irritated. Yeah, those are probably in the 70% range.
Right. Any other emotions that I haven't asked about? So far, we've got sad and down and unhappy. We've got the whole anxiety cluster, intense. We've got the guilty and shame clusters, intense, a little inadequate and defective, and a little embarrassed and humiliated, quite a bit actually, and very discouraged, 85, and frustrated, 95, and annoyed and irritated, 70. Anything else? Like overwhelmed?
Yeah, I mean, if we had overwhelmed in there, that would be super high, if it gets its own category.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd put that at 95%.
95, great. Now, let me ask you what some of your negative thoughts are when you're feeling this way, or even at this moment. Like you said, I should be able to figure this out, and you believe that 100. You also said, no one will do this for me. That's probably not a distorted thought. I jotted it down. And then I'm not sure I can be that organized. That's a good negative thought.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you believe that one?
I would put that at probably 85%.
85, great. And what are some more of your negative thoughts when you're feeling down, guilty, anxious, defective, embarrassed?
Yeah, it would be things like I'm failing. I'm
failing, yeah.
Yeah.
How much do you believe that one?
In those moments,
mm-hmm.
that would be 95%.
95, and I wrote that down. I'm failing. That's an excellent one. What are some more negative thoughts, things that you tell yourself?
Oh, good. I'm seeing this goes on to another page. I was like, I'm going to run
yeah.
out of space.
We have more daily mood logs, too.
Time, like there's not enough time.
Okay.
Yeah, or like there's no way that I can, there's no way I will be able to do this, is maybe. There's not enough time. I mean, there's they kind of overlap with each other a little bit.
Yeah, I'll make that one thought. There's not enough time and no way I can do all of this. How's that?
Yeah.
And then how much do you believe that one?
Yeah, like 100.
100, sure.
100%.
Sure. And what are some more, that's kind of the discouraged thought
Yeah.
and the frustrated thought. What's the inadequate and defective thought?
Well, the I'm not capable of doing this, that's definitely the defective. There's
Yep, sure.
yeah.
Let's write that down. That's thought number 5, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not capable of doing this. And then what is this defined as?
This is okay, so this could be two things. This could be getting organized and executing on that.
Yeah, okay.
Or this could be sort of the result, like I'm not capable of the success or the goals that I want.
Achieving my goals.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then that's a really well stated one. And how much do you believe that between 0 and 100? I'm not capable of getting organized. I'm not capable of achieving my goals.
I mean, in those moments, it's not how I live my day, though I guess I do come in and out of that. It's so wild to just really kind of see that in front of me that way. I would put that at an 85 or 90.
Yeah, 90. By the way, it's like going in and out of a trance. Like when you get in there, it seems totally true.
Yeah.
And then when you recover, it's such a radical shift. It's like almost like you're in a different reality.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Any other negative thoughts? We've got some super ones here.
Let me just see if anything else like jumps out at me. Ooh, I don't know. This one feels kind of risky to say. My father was right.
Great. Okay. And tell us what that means. How you're feeling right at this moment.
Well, I can hear his voice, you know, at a young age, like kind of accosting me around like, you gotta figure this out. You gotta clean your room. You gotta get organized. You'll never succeed if you can't figure this out. So I hear that. And on the flip side of it, there's a part of me that, you know, would love his blessing in terms of what I do with my life. And it might shock people to learn that I definitely haven't gotten it explicitly. Whether he does feel it and he's just keeping it to himself, that's possible. But you know, my father, his career, he was a clinical psychologist, and there have just been a lot of times where I've wished that he could also see the value in what I do and how I'm showing up in the world and how I'm contributing.
Is he still alive?
He is. Yep.
Or do you feel sad when you think about that? Or angry? Or
yeah, I mean, we could do a whole nother mood log on that one.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, for sure, it's a source of sadness and anger that I've dealt with for most of my adult life. And because he's alive, I hold out the hope that at some point there will be some sort of redemption in that way. But it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot about, and just to be clear, I think I said this one other time when I talked about my dad on the show. I love him dearly, and then there are things about him that I just don't understand, and that aren't. I may never understand them. There's a level of opaqueness in terms of how he lives his life and his choices, and I guess I'm just like I would just like a little bit more from him, a little more engagement and support.
Well, I feel sad and really close to you based on what you're saying right now, or what you've said the entire time we've been talking, and I can identify with it on a personal level too, because I've been experiencing a little conflict with my own son just yesterday. Kind of erupted a little bit, and we were both pretty angry with each other, and feeling unappreciated and unloved, and we tried to talk it out, but a little bit, but there was such an explosive level of anger, like it wasn't working, and he also loves me a lot, and really admires what I've done, but maybe doesn't always feel like his dad appreciates him. It very, very similar to what you're saying, and I was kind of at wit's end, and very, very anxious, very feeling kind of ashamed too, and hurt, and he was sitting at the dining room table doing some work with a colleague, and on impulse, I know he likes physical touch, and so I just went up and started massaging his shoulders, and he indicated he was really loving that, and then I just kind of leaned over on his back and hugged him, and then he got up and turned around, gave me a wonderful hug. It was really a beautiful moment, and sometimes I think that out of intense anger, if you hang in there in a relationship, then really, really beautiful things can happen. But I'm sure it was so painful for him, and has been painful for him, to feel like his dad doesn't really appreciate him. And I'm so filled with admiration for him and his ethical qualities, his idealism, his incredible technical skills, his love, his work ethic. But it's so easy for fathers and sons to disconnect, and sometimes never connect. My dad was a Lutheran minister, and he was I just admired him when I was little and loved him so much and thought I'd be a minister. And then we kind of drifted apart, and I began to see things that really hurt me and turned me off, and so we never really did reconcile. I felt kind of judged, and he was very rigid, and if you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to go to hell, and stuff that seemed harsh to me. But I'm sure you'll find a way to connect with your dad. But I can certainly identify with how incredibly painful that is for you, and you have achieved such a fantastic amount. If a father could ever have a son to be proud of, you're the son, but I can see you're hurting an awful lot.
Thank you. Yeah. I just want to say too, like that that the space exists between you and your son to be able to do that, and that you would recognize his, his love language and show up in that way is such a gift. And it was really moving to hear you describe that.
I felt really lucky that happened. Generally, there's a path to intimacy when you're upset with people. I have the philosophy: the angrier, more hurt you feel with someone, the more fantastic potential for a loving connection and reconciliation and more. But it's like, what is the path? That's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
But my father was right when you say that. How much believable is that?
Yeah. So let
me unplug my phone here. Sorry, I just unplugged it. Yep.
So in those moments, my father was right. That's 85 or so.
85, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel so close to you right now, and I think many people are going to be touched by the reality and the openness and vulnerability you're bringing to this, and probably to all of your podcasts. Any other negative thoughts?
Well, the only other one that really jumps out for me would be something like, I'm going to be, I'll be unhealthy, weak, and broke. Like that's what's gonna happen.
Oh, great. And then how much do you believe that one?
That's less. So I would say that's in like the 65%.
65. And so just to review your negative thoughts in reverse order, I'm going to be unhealthy, weak, and broke. My father was right about me. I'm not capable of getting organized and achieving my goals. There's not enough time and no way I can do all of this, all the things I have to do and all the things I want to do. I'm failing. I should be able to do this and figure this out. And I'm not really sure I can be that organized enough to do all the things on my plate. And then perhaps no one will do this for me. You had mentioned 0, lonely, unloved, unwanted, rejected, alone, and abandoned. But when you say no one will do this for me, does that cause some feelings of being alone at all, or not? You gave a 0 on it, which is fine.
I guess so. I guess it's true. Yeah, there's that sense of like, I'm in this by myself. Yeah.
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 And then when you have that's thought, then how alone would you be feeling?
Yeah, like an 80.
An 80. Okay,
Yeah.
good. And so you're feeling overwhelmed, irritated, frustrated, discouraged, embarrassed, alone, inadequate, guilty, ashamed maybe, intensely anxious, and very sad, down and unhappy. So how am I doing right now in terms of getting you and understanding how you're thinking and how you're feeling, and are you, to what extent are you feeling a sense of compassion or acceptance? If you were to grade me on empathy so far, would you give me a A, a B, a C, a D?
I'd give you an A for empathy. Yeah. I mean, I feel like going through this helps me see myself, for one thing, and what's happening in those moments, and the attention that you're giving to the language that I'm using, and encouraging me to get specific, and and telling me about your experience with your son and your dad, and really kind of pausing with me in that. I feel seen.
Okay. We've kind of, just from a brief teaching point of view, we've done the T because we've done testing. We know exactly how you're feeling, and we'll do that again at the end of the session. And we've done some empathy.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes for this episode under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. The theme music is Gypsy Jazz in Paris, 1935, composed and performed by Brett Van Donsel. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.